Okay, hi everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Paula Pashby. I'm a Solano County Master Gardener. Today we're going to talk about how to create a garden to attract various pollinators. So we would have loved to have been in person today, but with the shelter in place, that's just not possible. But it's looking like Zoom is maybe the next best thing. Hopefully you can pick up some tips and tricks from this video. I'd also like to introduce Jennifer Baumbach. She's the Master Gardener Program Coordinator, and she's going to be moderating and also checking what we call chat. So we'll go into that in a minute. But basically, the guidelines for today, if I could ask everyone to stay on mute if we're live, video off. That way it's just much easier to do the presentation. And then we're going to use something called chat. We're also going to open it up for questions at the very end. So chat, it's a basic setting in your Zoom settings. And so this is what it looks like. And you just type in your question or comment and press enter. You should be able to access chat under controls. Sometimes it's under advanced. Try to choose show to everyone. So it's this little icon right here. You would click the drop down and choose everyone. Then that way we can all benefit from your question or comment. And we really encourage comments and expertise here. Okay, so gardening to attract pollinators. In this presentation, we tried to focus on how we can create pollinator gardens on a local level. And so this one is geared towards Yolo County, Solano County, Benicia, and so forth, because our environment is a bit different than a lot of the other California environments. So some of the things we're going to look at. Why is it even important to attract pollinators into our garden? Who are these pollinators? What's the human impact on pollinators? How can we help? What do we want to plant locally? Which plants are going to attract which pollinators? So if some folks have issues with bees, they don't want a lot of bees in their yards, you can still focus on having a butterfly garden or a hummingbird garden. There's a lot of different options. And then we're going to look at resources to help you plan your garden. We also have handouts for this presentation. So the ones that are here live are going to get handouts in chat. Also for Master Gardeners in our local area, you can go to the ANR database and get those handouts. If you're not watching this live, you can go ahead and email me and I'll send you the handouts. So my email address is ppashby@sbcglobal.net. So spelled out, it's P like Patty, P like Patty, A, S like Sam, H, B like boy, Y, at sbcglobal.net. Okay, so one of the first things we want to quickly talk about is why pollination is even important. So simply put, pollination, it's the transfer of pollen grains from one flower to another, or one part of a flower to another. It leads to production of fruit and veggies we can eat, and seeds that will create more plants. It's really fundamental to our food supply. It's vital to 70 to 75% of the world's flowering plants. Over 1/3 of the world's crop species depend on pollination for reproduction, believe it or not. Okay, so most flowering plants actually have developed a variety of methods for pollen transfer, such as wind, water, self-pollination. However, the most common method for pollination are the pollinators. So we have the bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, etc. Also, the plants provide protein-rich pollen and sugar-rich nectar. So we're attracting pollinators by providing the protein in the pollen, nectar, sugar in the nectar. It's really mutually beneficial for plants and pollinators. So in exchange for providing pollen and nectar, the plants receive pollen transfer, which is moving pollen from one plant to another, and fertilization of the plant and initiating the production of seeds and fruit. Only fertilized plants can make fruit or seeds, and without them, the plants cannot reproduce. Okay, so let's take a closer look at these pollinators. If you're local in California or Solano or Yolo County, go ahead and name a few that you know about and use your chat function in Zoom just to get used to it. Okay, so we're going to look at some details on these pollinators. So a pollinator is an animal that moves pollen from plant to plant, just like we stated. There's many different types of pollinators. So you have birds, butterflies, bees, wasps, ladybugs, bats, beetles. And it's interesting, beetles are actually a key pollinator for California poppies. So sometimes people see beetles and they think that they are a pest in the garden, but just try to know your beneficials versus your pests and you'll get good results. Even flies are involved in pollinating. So we're going to look at some details on more of the pollinators, such as lifespan, plant flower preferences, habitat, etc. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at the human impact on these guys. So human beings have had a dramatic impact on the ecosystems of the earth, which directly affects many pollinator species. So the first thing we have, pesticides and herbicides. These are causing huge trouble for the pollinators. Excuse me. They're designed to kill insects and plants that people don't want around in their gardens, lawns, or farms. But the problem is they can also kill native plants and the native pollinators that we need. Next thing, loss of habitat. So people's ability to transform landscapes from meadows and fields into cities and neighborhoods and farmlands, etc., is really disrupting natural habitats. The flowering plants, bushes and trees that pollinators rely on for both food and habitat are really disappearing. And next we have air and light pollution. So the artificial light, it attracts the insects, it pulls them from their natural ecosystems. Then their frenzied activities around lights also exhaust them and makes them easy prey for predators in that ecosystem. And then another human impact is bringing in invasive species. So humans' ability to move people and products all around the world means that non-native organisms are also being moved into new ecosystems. These invasive species are disrupting ecosystems by competing with native species for resources. And then we've got climate change. So kind of the specifics of that, human activities that contribute to climate change are creating big challenges for the pollinators. Climate change is causing seasonal patterns to change in really unexpected ways. For example, some pollinator plants are blooming earlier in the year, and so when these plant cycle patterns change, pollinators can be affected in a variety of ways. They might arrive on the scene after the flowers have bloomed. They might also become confused about when to migrate and hibernate, and they might miss their cue to reproduce or move into the next life cycle, like a cocoon or chrysalis. So yeah, human impacts are really challenging pollinators' ability to survive and thrive. But once we understand these problems, it gives us a better chance to help out in our own way. So let's take a closer look at who these pollinators are and what we can do to attract them to our own local gardens. All right, a closer look at bees. Some fun facts about bees. There's many different types of bees, so we could be much more specific, but we don't have the time to get into it here. But there's lots of resources out there for those who want to venture further into this interesting world of bees. It's pretty cool. Okay, so just some general facts so we understand them a little better. Lifespan varies depending on type of bee. The honeybees live anywhere from 100 to 150 days. Bumblebees live up to 30 days, so not a long lifespan. They use their antenna to detect odor, so we want to make sure we have a lot of cool smells in our garden. They can smell flower or toxin smells and illness. Actually, they can smell cancer from up to 2 miles away. They hear by feeling physical sensation. That buzz sound that we hear, that's actually their wings moving. And these bees don't see red, but they see yellow, blue, green, violet, ultraviolet. And again, their sense of smell is their strongest sense. Another fact is with our bees, male bees don't even have stingers. And so a lot of the times people are worried about that, like the big carpenter bees or bumblebees. Most of those guys buzzing around, they don't even have stingers. They're kind of aggressive at times, but they can't sting. Honeybees, same thing with them. The males do not have stingers. If they feel threatened, they will sting. So kind of the difference between honeybees and our California native bees. The honeybees are protecting a queen in a hive, and so they have more incentive to sting if they feel threatened. Whereas our native bees, they're the coolest. They're solitary bees. They don't have anything to protect. Even the female native bees that do have stingers, probably not likely to sting unless you like try to squish them in your hand. They're very docile. Okay, so if anyone has any more fun facts on bees, go ahead and put them into chat. So just type in whatever you're thinking and press enter. Okay, so now on to our hummingbirds. It's always fun to have hummingbirds in our yards. So the lifespan of the hummingbird, about 3 to 5 years. The vision is the hummingbird's most important sense. So they're not going on smell, they're going on their vision. They're attracted to bright colors, mostly red, but also orange, yellow, and white. They can see further than a human. They can see motion really well. So their hearing is second to their sight. So they hear smaller frequency than humans, but more acute sound recognition skills like pitch, tone, rhythm changes, etc. All right, so our butterflies. So their lifespan really depends on many things and varies greatly. So depending on the species, it could live anywhere from 1 week up to 1 year. The average is around a month. So again, they've got really short lifespan. So it's kind of cool if you see them in your yard. It's neat that you're going to see them for just a little bit and know that they're spending some special time in your yard. The little tiny ones that you see flying around, those are the ones that live like for a week or so. Their most important sense is smell, so similar to the bees, and they use antennae to smell flowers. They can see ultraviolet, so butterflies are mostly attracted to white, pink, purple, red, yellow, orange, quite a large array. They use sensory structures on their feet to taste and identify plants. And with hearing, they feel vibration. Now, with caterpillars, there's a sense of touch, taste, smell, sound, and light, but not sight yet. Okay, so ladybugs. They've been called ladybug, ladybird, lady beetle, lady clock, lady cow, lady fly and probably more. So the ladybug is actually a beetle. Its lifespan is between 1 and 3 years. Doesn't live too long. Their antennae and feet help with sense of smell, touch, and taste. They can't actually see color, so they're only going by smell. They only see shades of gray, black, white-ish kind of colors. Well, non-colors. They really like light and warmth. Their spots, it's kind of interesting, the spots are a warning to predators. So as they get older, their spots fade. So you can tell how old they are by looking at their spots or lack of spots. Temperatures under 55 degrees limit their ability to fly. Okay, so next we're going to see a chart that shows these pollinators' preferences for flower types and color and so forth. And this is, we're not going to go into it heavy duty. This is actually a handout. And like I said, if you're not live with us today, you can email me and I'll send it to you. So basically what this is telling us, again, it's telling us the preference of our different pollinators. There's more that we're really talking about today that are in this handout. So moths and flies and bats are in here. But kind of the main thing that I think you should take away is that butterflies like flat top flowers. So it's easier for them to land on those. Moths like light colored flowers that open at night. And the hummingbirds like the tubular flowers for its long beak. Okay, so now that we know a little more about pollinators and what they're attracted to, let's dig in and see how we can create a pollinator garden in our own homes, or if we're working in community gardens like we were before the shelter in place was going on, what plants can we use? So if you have any ideas on plants, etc., go ahead and drop those into chat. We would love to see them. Okay, so how can we help? We can create pollinator-friendly garden. So eliminate pesticides whenever possible. Try to learn to control pests naturally. So if you must use a pesticide, use the least toxic material possible. Make sure you read labels carefully before purchasing. And as many pesticides are especially dangerous for bees, use it properly. Spray at night when bees and other pollinators are not active. Use a wide variety of plants that bloom from early spring into late fall. So that's going to help you support the pollinators that are waking up early, that need their food, etc. Plant a variety of color, and this is really important. Plant the same colors in large clumps. That way, either visually or from their sense of smell, the pollinators will be able to find your plants and visit them. Tempt with fragrance. Oh my gosh, having a fragrant garden, it's so wonderful. You just go out there, touch all the plants and get that wonderful scents going. And again, it's most of the pollinators' primary sense. So this one's kind of interesting. Avoid modern hybrid flowers, especially those with doubled flowers. And so basically what's happened in double flowers, they're really cool looking and they last a long time, but not the best for pollinators. So in double flowers, the male fertilization part that typically consists of pollen has been transformed into extra petals for a fuller, sort of showier bloom. But the lack of pollen means pollination cannot occur and the flower remains open for longer. waiting. Both of these features have made the flowers attractive, but not really efficient for pollinator friends. Okay, how can we help? So one of the things, spare that limb. So maybe if you have like a dead branch or something, if it's not too obnoxious, you can leave that there. Many bees nest in there, other pollinators nest in there. You could have a bee barn and exposed dirt. So a lot of our pollinators are native bees, and they actually nest in the dirt. So I know a big thing that's really helpful to a lot of gardeners is to put mulch down, like everywhere. So it makes the weeds go away, it keeps the water in, the moisture in, and so forth. But if you could keep a little bit of dirt exposed, a lot of the native bees that live in the dirt will be able to survive in there. Make a bath available for birds, bees, and other pollinators. They like running water if you can do that. Also for bees, make sure it's not too deep. I know it's tricky for those of us that have pools, but eventually the bees get used to the more shallow water sources. Provide hummingbird feeders. That's always cool. Just make sure that you clean them often. Include a larval host plant in your landscape. So this is sort of like the sacrificial plant. This would be for caterpillars, and it's something that they'll munch on. They'll definitely chew apart. But if you put it in a part of your yard that's not really noticeable, it is really beneficial. And in our case, we're in California. Know your local native California plants. Okay, so just a quick rundown on specific plants that these pollinators love, and then we'll list out some of the main plants that are not only California native, but also tend to do well in our local county conditions. These plants are identified here by their common name, but you can always find out their scientific name later by going to the Master Gardener website. Okay, so if anyone can name more plants that we have listed here, I know there's tons of them. These are just sort of main ones. Go ahead and put those into chat. Okay, so butterflies. Oh my gosh, they love bee balm, butterfly bush, cosmos, daylily, dianthesis, and marigold. All these plants are beautiful to have in your garden. Also, the milkweed is crucial for monarch butterfly. So the caterpillar needs it and the adult needs it. So caterpillars, they love borage, fennel, lupin, again, milkweed, salvia, thistle, and they're all beautiful plants. All right, so hummingbirds. Again, I'm just calling these plants out by their common names. You can always go to UC Master Gardener or UCIPM, which is University of California Integrated Pest Management site, to get the scientific name. So hummingbirds love bee balm, begonia, fuchsia, phlox, zinnia, and then bees, quite a huge variety. They love aster, California lilac, western redbud, California poppy, catmint, sage, all sorts of sage, and goldenrod. All right, so now let's look at some of the cool things we can plant. All right, what to plant? So first, a note about California natives, or whatever state or locality you're in, natives usually do best. We're going to look here, mostly at California natives that do well in our local county conditions. So we're talking about Yolo, um, Solano, Sacramento, etc. So California native plants, which are adapted to local soils and climates, are usually the best sources of nectar and pollen for California native pollinators, since they evolved together. In California, planting California natives can help save water, reduce maintenance, and pesticide use, and invite beneficial pollinators. Incorporating native wildflowers, shrubs, and trees into any landscape promotes local biological diversity and provides shelter and food for a wide variety of wildlife, including our pollinators. So many times people ask, well, what about planting non-native plants in California? Most non-native species are not a problem, and some are considered beneficial and will attract pollinators for sure. Non-native plants are fundamental to our lifestyle. Most of our food crops, such as potatoes and wheat, are not native to the United States or California at all. Just make sure it's not invasive, waiting to take over and push out California native plants. So the reason they can do this is because the natural pests, foraging animals, diseases, or weather conditions, which kept those plants in check in their homeland, are absent here. All right, so garden design. Before buying plants, maybe draw or sketch a plan, especially if it's new to a new garden. So you want to look at form, the shape and size, the scale of the garden. You want to look at site constraints, like do you have sun for veggies, up to 6 to 8 hours a day. You can look at different really cool themes, like if you want all certain colors, if you want contrasts, look at shade, sun, size, etc. And features. So trees or stone walls or really pretty pathways, sitting areas, fountains, murals, flagstone. You can really make it look nice. So now let's check out some plants that should do well in your own pollinator garden. Again, these are listed by common name, but you can find the scientific name at the Master Gardener website. If anyone has ideas on design, please add it to chat. We all want to learn from each other. So now let's check out some plants that should do well in your own pollinator garden. There's so many possibilities, so here we just list a few that seem to do really well locally. Okay, aster. Butterflies love this one. It also attracts many types of native bees and provides them with both pollen and nectar. It's a beautiful perennial that flowers throughout summer. It's got wonderful lavender blue daisies, and it actually pairs well with silver foliage plants. California lilac, another beauty. Bees and butterflies love this one. There are a wide variety of native shrubs. It's an excellent source of pollen for early spring bees, and it can be trained as a small tree, and it's covered with clear blue flowers in March. It's stunning. Western redbud. So hummingbirds, goldfinches, butterflies, and bees love this one. If you see curious scoops on the edge of its leaves, they look like half circles. That means native leafcutter bees live close by. So these are native California bees, and what they do is they cut out these little half circle portions in the leaves, and as you see in this bottom image, the bee is taking it to actually use it as kind of like wallpaper for its living quarters. So this could be a bee barn, it could be a lot of different places. So it's also native to the foothills of California's valley floor It blooms in spring with gorgeous magenta pink pea-shaped blooms. All right, California poppy. It attracts a variety of bees, particularly bumblebees, honeybees, and sweat bees. And it's mainly pollinated by beetles. So butterflies are also attracted to the nectar. After the flowers are gone, birds are also attracted to the seeds. So technically it's an annual, but they will do what we call perennializing by sprouting the following year from their roots and lower stems or by reseeding. Blanket flower, another gorgeous one. At the right time of day, the blanket flowers are mobbed by honeybees. The butterflies and moths also love the flowers along with a dozen of native bees. In the valley, they also attract longhorn bees. So this plant may be short-lived in heavy soils, but you can just keep an eye on it. Lavender, a bee favorite, especially among honey and bumblebees. So it blooms early, lasts late into summer. It's also popular with large carpenter bees and a range of other smaller bees. It's sun-loving, drought-tolerant, requires good drainage and occasional summer watering, although I've seen it grow quite nicely in clay soil. It can be pruned to shape to increase branching or keep in a compact form. Okay, Cleveland sage, another great one for California and our local Solano, Yolo, Sacramento areas. Bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds love this plant. It's a great example of a low water bee plant. And that's also in one of the handouts you'll get. It shows which plants are really drought tolerant and do not need a lot of watering. So Cleveland sage, it's an evergreen shrub with fragrant foliage. It's got these really cool twirls of blue lavender flowers on spikes blooming spring into summer. Hummingbird sage, another favorite among hummingbirds. In fact, all the sages are bee and hummingbird magnets. It's a perennial. You get red flowers in spring and in summer. Milkweed. So this one is really important for monarch butterfly. The monarch larvae or caterpillars feed exclusively on milkweed leaves. It provides nectar also for bees. It's a deciduous perennial, and it's got these really cool pink and cream flower clusters. Okay, manzanita. The specific one here, Howard McMinn, manzanita. This one's really cool because it blooms spring, January, and February too. So it's perfect for early bees and hummingbirds. And it's an evergreen shrub. California fuchsia, gorgeous. We usually cannot have like the fuchsias that they sell in the nurseries like Home Depots and stuff here in our zone. So it's usually zone 9. But this one is a native, California fuchsia native, almost looks like Cape honeysuckle. Main pollinators, hummingbirds, bees. It's a deciduous perennial, and it's got these gorgeous red flowers. Yarrow. So these guys are really cool. You can get them in all different colors. You've probably seen them out in the wild, but you can also have them in your garden. They attract many beneficial insects, bees, butterflies, so many different colors to choose from. It's a long bloomer that makes an excellent cut flower, fresh or dried. And it's really, really easy care. Columbine. So in our area, the specific one is serpentine. Columbine, hummingbird magnet. They love this plant. Catmint. So it's not catnip, it's catmint. This is sought by a wide variety of bees like honeybees, leafcutters, digger bees, you name it. It's a favorite among hummingbirds too. If you go out to, in our area, UC Davis, Haagen-Dazs, Bee Haven, there's this plant out there and it's swarmed by every kind of bee you can imagine. This one can also help deter other pests in your garden like aphids and squash bugs. So it's a pretty cool plant. It's a perennial that blooms from spring to early summer. All right, Cape honeysuckle. Okay, the ones that we just talked about are California natives, and these last ones, they're not natives, but they do well. The pollinators love them, so they've probably been around long enough where the pollinators know that they're plants that they can get nectar from. So this one, the hummingbirds love because of the tubular flowers. The flowers and leaves look like they're from like a miniature trumpet creeper, if you know what that looks like. The plant is actually called a vine, but it produces fast-growing upright shoots that lean on support rather than attach themselves to it. Cape honeysuckle begins blooming in July or August and blooms all the way through the cold season here in our Zone 9 in California, Solano, Yolo County. Butterfly bush. This one is amazing. If you've ever seen this as a mature plant. So it's beautiful. It attracts bees and butterflies and beneficial flies. It's drought tolerant and really problem-free. Okay, so Alstroemeria, another non-native, but oh my gosh, this thing has tons of bees that are attracted to it. It's prized for its attractive, colorful flowers, which are frequently used in long-lasting cut flower arrangements. I know when I cut these flowers, I have them indoors, they last forever. They're amazing. And they seem to bloom like year-long. Potato vine, another non-native, non-California native. So attracts bees and hummingbirds. It's got round, dark blue fruits that can follow flowers if pollination occurs. This one's native to Brazil. It grows in U.S. Department of Agriculture plant hardiness zones 9 through 11. So it definitely is something that we can grow. Okay, so resources. Like I said, there's tons of resources out there. Some really important ones here in California and Solano, Sacramento, and Yolo County. So we've got the Master Gardener website. We've got the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources statewide integrated pest management program, also known as UCIPM, UC Davis Arboretum and Public Garden. We've got University of California Davis Haagen-Dazs Honeybee Haven, California Native Plant Society. And if you're in California, you can look for your local chapter. I believe ours is the Willis Jepson chapter, Solano County, and tons more resources. Okay, great. So thanks everyone, and I hope that this inspired you to get excited about either starting a new garden, to get some pollinators into your yard, or if you're like some of us that you have no more room for plants, maybe you can sneak a few more native California local pollinator plants in there. And next, what we're going to do is open it up for questions. And I thank you very much.